Hey, what's up? Hope everyone's doing all right. So this is week 25, and the reading for this week is Psalms 51 through 96. And so, once again, if you take the Bible and you break it up into 50 different segments, so you have a certain amount of reading per segment. And for me, in the King James Version of the Bible, it's about 14 pages. And then you break the Bible up into 50 different segments, and you do one segment per week, then you can get through the Bible in 50 weeks. And 50 weeks, if you do, and then there's 52 point something weeks in a year, so you can get through the Bible from cover to cover in 1 year. And so that's what I've been doing. And these last 24 videos, I've just gone over each segment and each reading. And today is the 25th segment, or 25 out of 50. And the readings is Psalms 51 through 96. And so what I've been doing is, I break it up into 50 segments per year, so one segment per week. But then with each week or each segment, then I have 5 main themes that I try to concentrate, and I assign them to one day of the week per theme. So that way that every day of the week I have something that I'm kind of reflecting on that's in the readings. Either I'll read them on Monday or I'll read them on Friday, but I do that reading through the week. And then I reflect on those 5 themes per the week. And like I said, I assign one theme to each day. So that way when my thoughts start to wander, or I'm focusing on things I shouldn't be focusing on, I can revert back to that theme that I have for that day, and that allows me to refocus myself and to have a good foundation throughout the day and remember what's important and try to stay away from all the deception that surrounds me, and focus on the truth. And so on Monday, my theme that I have on Monday is guilt and regret for sin. And so, when you have guilt and you have regret for sin, it's painful. And we're all sinners, so we're all going to feel pain, because we're all going to sin, and then we're going to have regret for that sin, and then the pain's going to come along with that regret. And so what happens is that, let's say there's like a relationship, and a relationship ends. And so where is your fault in the relationship? Where did you go wrong? And I feel like most interactions with people, at least a lot of interactions with people, or at least some interactions with people, I would say, you're going to have some fault in there. Why it didn't go correctly, or why it messed up. Especially if it's a long, relationship that you had for a long time, either with a family member or a significant other or a friendship. And so when you're reflecting on that, okay, where did I go wrong? You want to be truthful with yourself. But if you're in a situation, let's say you're at work and you're already in a stressful environment, and the environment isn't conducive for you to be able to handle more pain in order for you to have a good outcome, then you probably shouldn't be reflecting on that situation, because then you're going to be, okay, well, I can't handle any more pain right now, because I'm already in a stressful and a tumultuous environment, and pain is already deriving from that environment. If I try to reflect on a situation that's going to be more pain, then what I'm going to do is, often I feel like people do what I'll do too, is that I'll just take that situation, and I won't be completely honest with myself, because I can't be completely honest with myself, because I don't want to deal with the pain that comes from the guilt from where I erred. And so it's better to wait until you're in an environment or a situation where you can handle pain, where you're in a better environment or better situation, besides the one that is you're finding to be difficult to be in. Like later when you come home from work and you're eating dinner, and you're just in a more cozy environment, or you're talking to somebody that you have a good relationship with, and then you can reflect on why the relationship was wrong, what was your issue, where did you sin, where did you mess up, so that way that you can handle the pain that's going to come from that, and then be able to have truth in the situation. If you try to reflect on the situation, like I said, when you're in a prior environment that's really difficult, you're already having pain, then you're not going to be able to deal with that pain. You're not going to want to add more pain, so then you're going to lie to yourself. I think or at least often people will lie to themselves. And so now you construct a truth in your mind, or view a reality that's not accurate, because you're not able to handle the pain that comes from a truthful reflection of that situation. But if you're later and you reflect it, when you're in a more positive environment, then you can handle pain, and then you can construct a truthful scenario, or a truthful event, or a truthful truth, or something that's accurate about the situation, that's just accurate, so you can handle it. And then that way, when you can admit your faults, and you can get through the guilt, and you can ask for forgiveness, and you can move on. But if you do it in the wrong time, then you're not going to be able to admit your fault. You're not going to be able to handle that pain, and then that situation, you're always going to think of it as like a situation that is inaccurate, and then you lie to yourself, and then when you lie to yourself, then you just start creating a whole entire world that's bad. So if you find yourself in a bad situation all the time, then it's really problematic. At least then you can realize, okay, well, I can't deal with this right now. I can't reflect on this right now. And I think a lot of times too, when you talk to somebody, you ask somebody how they're doing, they don't really want to talk about it because they're just not in an environment or situation where they can talk about it and handle the truth of the situation. And so I think it's good to give people space and try not to take things personal but it's always good to reflect on the situation when you're in a place. And obviously it's good to have brotherhood and people that you love and that are Christians, so that way that you can be in a safe place where you can think about these things and be truthful with yourself and be able to come with a correct view of reality instead of incorrect view of reality, mainly because you're not able to deal with the additional pain because the situation you're in is already too saturated with pain. And so Tuesday, theme that I have in this segment or this reading is sadness. And so for sadness, for me, is often a emotion that I go to because I don't want to be angry. And so in the Bible it says be slow to anger, but it doesn't really say be slow to sadness. And so if there's something going wrong and I'm not able to kind of handle the situation, instead of being angry, I'll just revert to a very powerful emotion, which is sadness. And I think in the state of sadness, you're able to kind of reflect and you're able to do pretty well and to, not to make bad choices because you're already kind of depressed and, you're already, you're pretty slowed down. You're not like at a heightened state of anxiety necessarily. You're not like a heightened state of alertness. And so you can kind of reflect on the situation. And so when things are going awry and I'm not able to make a good decision, then it's better to make no decision, I think. And so sadness is a good place for me, at least, to go to. And I don't think there's any sin in being sad, but a lot of people will be like, okay, you need to be positive. You're bringing down the people around you. But I don't think that you want to be positive, and you don't want to sin because you're lying to yourself in order for you to be positive. You don't want to be, okay, my life is better than it is, and lie to yourself about the things in your life so that you can think that it's better than it is when it's not. You don't want to be like, okay, well, I'm only making $20,000 a year, but at least I'm getting, food stamps. I mean, that is truth in there, but it's not better to only be making $20,000 a year so that you're getting food stamps. It's better to be making $40,000, $50,000 a year so you don't have to rely on food stamps. Ideally, because if you're relying on food stamps and you're taking money from the state and you're contributing less. And so you don't want to lie to yourself, okay, well, I'm taking money from the state, I'm stimulating the economy, but I'm only making $20,000 a year, but that's okay, because you want to be positive. You're like, well, just be positive. Think about the positive things in your environment. But ideally, you want to be making more money so you don't have to be on food stamps. You can contribute more to the society than take away. And that might not be true, but I think it's a good example of the idea of trying to be positive and lying to yourself because you don't want to deal with the pain of the situation that you're in. You just want to be, okay, well, I'm only making $20,000 a year and I'm getting on food stamps. Okay, that's true, but then you just have to go, okay, I really want to not be in this situation and try to contribute more than you're taking away that is for the society, and just deal with the pain of that you're just in a state where you don't want to be. You can be, okay, well, I'm in a situation but I'm not going to be here very long. I'm going to try to get myself out of here. I'm going to try to work harder, and so that might alleviate the pain. But you don't want to lie to yourself and tell yourself falsehoods, because then you're just lying to yourself. And if you lie to yourself, then you lie to others, and you don't know what reality is once you start lying to yourself. So I think that sadness is a good place to be in. You can be sad because you're only making $20,000 a year and you're taking food stamps away. Like, that's okay. Like, that's a totally okay thing to be. And I feel like at least it's better than to lie to yourself and have a false sense of joyfulness that's backed by lies and deception, because you want to be positive and you want to be popular and you want people to like you because people around you will tell you that you need to be positive. And so because you're a social being, because people are social beings, you want to be liked, and you end up lying to yourself because you want to go along with the herd and you want to be liked, and you don't want to be sad and you want to be joyful and happy. But the price to do these sort of things is sin, because you're lying to yourself, and then you're just become a really big issue, because now you're lying to yourself, and therefore if you lie to yourself, then you don't know what reality is, and you're sinning, and you're probably going to lie to others, because I don't think lying is something you can just stop and just kind of do and not do. It's something that's either a part of you. Either you're a truthful person or you're a liar, and you're a deceiver, or you're somebody who honors the truth. You're a slave to either the truth, or you're a slave either to deception. And the more you tell the truth, the more you're a slave to the truth, and the more you deceive, then the more you are a slave to deception. And deceiving yourself is just the same as deceiving others in a lot of regards. At least that's how I feel. And then so Wednesday I have, the theme I thought about is grateful because of God. And so it's really difficult because, what is gratefulness? What is joyfulness? What is happiness? What are these are biblical, and which reading or which one of these words are used more in different Bibles, and or there's a difference between the three. And for me, I've thought about it a lot, and it does talk about being rejoicing in the Bible. And in the Thessalonians, it talks about rejoicing, and so you want to rejoice, and so you want to rejoice with God. You want to rejoice in God's will, and you want to rejoice what God's done, and you want to be happy with, or you want to be joyful. I don't think happiness is even in the King James Version of the Bible, but semantics. What are the differences between the three? I think, like I said, I think about these ones a lot, and I've kind of, at least where I am right now, and I'm definitely open to new views. But where I'm at right now is that you want to be joyful, but you don't want to lie to yourself to have a false sense of positivity that's not backed by reality. But you do want to be joyful because you want to be joyful because you want to live in truth, and the truth is that God loves you, and no eye has seen or ear heard or entered into the heart of man what God has prepared for those that love him. So long as you love God, then what you're going to receive as a reward for that is beyond your even wildest comprehension. And so that is something that you can always be joyful about, and you want to be joyful about that, and you want to be joyful to God for being able to do that. And then on Thursday, I had joyfulness towards God's plan. And so God's plan, God's always in control. And so you want to be joyful for that. You want to be grateful for that. And that's something that I reflect on Thursday. You want to be joyful that God's in control and that his plan has meaning to it, and you're part of that plan. And that's something that I think about, and that's something that I reflected on Thursday. And then today is Friday, and Friday I have hope is like the main theme of Friday, which I have. And so for Psalms 51 through 96, there's a lot of emotion involved, and so that's why I've taken out these different ideas from this segment of the reading. And usually on different ones I have different types of ideas, but these ones are just pretty much emotions. Through Psalms and Proverbs, I've kind of just taken out emotions and ideas, basic ideas and basic emotions, kind of the foundation, the primal feelings and primal emotions and basic ideas of man, and reflecting on them. And hope, I think, is a very powerful feeling. It's there's always hope, and no matter what situation you're in, as long as you can have faith and you have hope, you can get through it, because I feel like redemption awaits every man that seeketh it. And I don't know if that's necessarily a biblical verse, but I do think that that's accurate. I think the Bible reflects that. And no matter where you are and where you're at, there's always redemption, as long as you try to get there. And as long as you can try to redeem yourself, then I think that you can redeem yourself in your situation. If you think you can, then I think you can. And I think just that people give up hope and they're like, okay, I'm just too far gone. And that's a pretty horrible place to be, but hope is overpowering, and I think that it can just alleviate a lot of horrible feelings and despair. I think hope can alleviate despair, and despair is a pretty painful place to be. I don't know if a lot of people have really experienced despair, but it's soul wrenching, and it's soul destroying. But then hopelessness is soul reviving. But yeah, that's pretty much the different themes that I have for this segment of the reading, Psalms 51 through 96. I do enjoy reading Psalms. Who are the author of Psalms and Proverbs? That's difficult to know, just because I don't necessarily agree with academia, but I do like the writings of it, and I think that I've come to the conclusion that pretty much I don't say pretty much, I've come to the conclusion that every word in the Bible is, it's interesting because every word in the Bible I don't think has the same amount of power, because some words in the Bible are history, they're historical information. It's not saying it's the right thing to do. And then some words of the Bible are the right things to do. So when Jesus talks, it's all about the right things to do. So I do think there's more power in Jesus' words than the other words of the Bible, because Jesus' words is like complete authority. The other words of the Bible, it's hard to tell if it's just historical information or if it's authority or not. And so, you can play semantics and say, okay, these still have the same type of power, but I do think on the face value, I think that maybe that's why they have Jesus' words in red and often the Bible, and I do kind of like that a lot, to be honest, and because I think it's complete authority. Well, the other letters, they have authority too. There's authority to them, but a lot of it is historical information and not just authority. It's not about what you shouldn't do, but just about what has been done, and then to be able to reflect on that. So at any rate, hope everyone's doing okay, and I appreciate any comments, and just gotta keep on keeping on. God bless, and happy truth seeking.